The moon has profoundly shaped Earth and influenced the entire course of our planet's evolution ever since it formed about 4.5 billion years ago. After a small planet collided with Earth, the moon was born, and from that moment it has circled us, tugging at the oceans, creating tides, and, quite literally, stirring life itself. But what if we blew it up? Destroying the moon would unleash consequences beyond imagination, much like in the film Oblivion, where aliens choose to wipe out humanity by annihilating the moon. You might be surprised to learn that both Russia and the United States once planned to detonate nuclear weapons on the moon. During the height of Cold War political and cultural tension, such ideas seemed almost reasonable. In 1958, the Armor Research Foundation, together with the United States Air Force, devised a plan to strike the moon with a nuclear bomb. The stated goal was to study the effects of a nuclear explosion on the lunar surface while testing the power of nuclear weapons in space. In truth, both sides wanted to set off a bomb on the moon as a grand display of strength. We might never have known about this if not for Carl Sagan, who once participated in a top-secret project related to detonating a nuclear device on the moon. The Soviet Union had its own plan, codenamed Project E. In the end, rather than blow it up, humanity chose to set foot on the moon. So the idea of blowing up the moon is far from new. The real question is, why would anyone want to do it? And what would actually happen if we could? In reality, humanity today simply does not have the technology to destroy the moon. Even if we used our entire stockpile of nuclear weapons, the worst outcome would be the moon shattering into many smaller pieces, which would eventually clump back together, though it would look very different in the night sky. But let's assume we could destroy it. The biggest question remains, why would we want to? Losing the moon would bring no benefit to Earth. In fact, the moon plays a far greater role than most people realize. The countless craters on its surface show that it has shielded Earth from an enormous number of meteor impacts that might otherwise have struck our planet. Even if Earth somehow survived the initial shock of the moon's destruction, other meteors would have a much clearer path to slam straight into us. And that's only the beginning. If the moon were blown apart, Earth would face a cascade of devastating effects, depending on how it exploded and where its fragments went. The destruction would produce a vast debris field, and if a large portion of that mass rained down on Earth, the consequences could be catastrophic. You might wonder, how many nuclear bombs would it take to blow apart the moon's surface? Calculations show it would require about 9,015 bombs the size of Castle Bravo. If all of them went off at once, colossal fragments of the moon would scatter through space, and many would come hurtling toward Earth, large enough to trigger an absolute cataclysm. Space rocks don't need to be enormous to cause devastation. Just remember the Chelyabinsk meteor in 2013. It was only about 20 meters wide and weighed between 12,000 and 13,000 tons, yet when it exploded 30 kilometers above the ground, it unleashed 400 to 500 kilotons of energy. About 26 to 33 times the power of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. More than 1,500 people were injured, mostly by shattered glass, and 7,200 buildings across 6 cities were damaged. Now, imagine hundreds of such impacts happening back-to-back over days or even months. The destruction would be unimaginable. Humanity might have no choice but to retreat underground simply to survive. In addition, a vast amount of debris would ignite as it plunged through the atmosphere, heating the air with terrifying speed and turning Earth into a gigantic oven. And that's not even counting the colossal rocks, stretching for tens of kilometers, that could slam directly into the planet, or the countless smaller fragments that would superheat the upper atmosphere and send global temperatures soaring. A massive dust cloud would rise, blanketing the sky and blocking sunlight, leaving only streaks of fiery trails as lunar fragments tore through the air. But worse still, Earth itself would face permanent, planet-altering changes. Its orbit, its rotation speed, and even the tilt of its axis would be thrown into chaos. The moon has long acted as Earth's stabilizer. Without it, our planet would begin to wobble wildly, and the seasons as we know them would vanish. Earth could even tip dramatically on its side relative to the sun, creating extreme differences in temperature and daylight. At other times, the planet might stand perfectly upright, making day and night equal year-round. Thanks to the moon, Earth's axial tilt has remained relatively stable, WDAR, between 23 and 26 degrees for millions of years. Without it, tides would shrink drastically, reduced to the faint pull of the sun alone, collapsing marine ecosystems that depend on tidal cycles. If the moon suddenly disappeared, violent and unpredictable tidal waves could sweep across the planet. At the same time, the length of a day would shorten. 4 billion years ago, a day on Earth lasted only about 8 hours because the moon was much closer then. Tidal friction caused by the moon has gradually slowed Earth's rotation, giving us the 24-hour day we have now. Today, the moon is drifting away from Earth at a rate of roughly 3.8 centimeters per year, adding about 2.3 thousandths of a second to each day every century. On top of that, the shattered remains of the moon could form a ring around Earth, much like Saturn's. Over time, this debris would fall back to the surface, causing repeated impacts. The night sky would grow far darker without the moon's reflective glow. Venus would become the brightest object overhead, but it shines at only about 1/14,000th the brightness of a full moon. And of course, there would be no more solar or lunar eclipses. All of this, however, remains purely hypothetical. There is no plan to blow up the moon. Doing so would require an utterly impossible number of nuclear weapons and rockets, far beyond humanity's capabilities. Still, the next time you look up at the night sky, you might feel a little more appreciation for Earth's silent companion, the moon. We hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when a new video arrives. Your support means the world to us, and we sincerely thank you for watching.